Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right. The big government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
I regret that I didn't realize that actually they've got no power over you at school. It's all just a trick to indoctrinate you into being a conditioned, tame, placid citizen. Rebel, children, I urge you. Fight the turgid slick of conformity with which they seek to smother your glory. That is a quote by Russell Brand, who just opened up the True Era Cafe in London today, where he is employing all ex-addicts that are on a complete abstinence program from their addiction. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. It is Thursday, March the 26th, 2015. We've got a great show lined up for y'all tonight. Just so you know, the only thing going in the world, apparently, if you turn on your TV, is a plane crash, which was horrible. But, you know, maybe there's something else going on in the world other than a plane crash. Again, Fox definitely wanted you to remember that, you know, kids go out and get drunk on spring break. They're still covering that story. So between that and the plane crash, that's really all that's going on. We got Bergdahl, he deserted, you know, 5 prisoners. So don't pay attention to anything else that's going on in the world. Just focus on those things. That's what the corporate media would have you do anyway. We're going to have a great guest coming on here in a minute. But we'll get to that here in a little bit. Also, in the world today, in the news, so much going on. I don't even know where to start. Just hit some of the headlines. Chechnya has threatened to send weapons to Mexico if the United States arms Ukraine. Think about how absolutely ludicrous that is, really. First off, where do you think Mexico and the drug cartels in Mexico are getting their weapons? They're getting it from the same people Ukraine's getting their weapons from currently. So I think Chechnya is kind of proving a point that for Americans to be like, you're going to send weapons to somebody on our border, you know, that doesn't make us feel good. But in reality, you know, it means nothing. You know, what's Chechnya going to do? But I think it does go and serve a purpose, at least, in explaining. It's like, you know, Americans would get uncomfortable at the thought that there's a country sending weapons to our border. That doesn't make us feel safe and secure. You know, it makes us feel like there's, you know, an outside threat coming in. Well, that, you know, that's what the United States does all the time. The United States is sending weapons everywhere, all over the world. And we just expect, well, it's for everybody else's safety. So why is it okay when the United States does it, but, if somebody else wants to knock on our doorstep with weapons, even though it's Chechnya, they're not going to do anything. I think it's, it's more of a parable than a reality, but that's what they're threatening to do. They're trying to do it, so yeah, we'll see if that happens. Also, Saudi Arabia, and can't hit it up early this show. I can't get through a show without mentioning Saudi Arabia. I wish, mainstream media and the rest of the world would realize what they're doing. But so we've got Saudi Arabia bombing Yemen. Got a naval blockade going on, wielding their power over there. I've been trying to keep up with it as much as I possibly can. Part of the question I have is, is it possible, do you think, that Saudi Arabia is actually having to do their own dirty work for once? Because let's look back at 9/11, and the United States attacks Iraq, who was definitely no friends with Saudi Arabia, and yet 15 of the 19 hijackers came from Saudi Arabia. And we didn't point our fingers in that direction. We pointed our fingers in the direction of Iraq, which is just, kind of crazy, and it's all history, but now here we are. Saudi Arabia is actually having to, I guess, fight their own fight that they want to involve themselves in. Most people don't realize that, they're the fourth largest funded military in the world right now. So they've got the means to do a lot of stuff. They just, choose not to. Also, we've got a couple of stories coming out of Colombia, which are really, 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 really sad. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Let me see if I can get it so I can kind of read you more in detail what's going on. We've got, I'm trying to pull up our guests here too. I'm having some difficulty with that, so bear with me. But, okay. So we've got DEA agents that have been found that they were having sex parties with prostitutes, and they hired these prostitutes and were paying for these parties with money from drug cartels. These are DEA agents. And this is an Inspector General's report that's come out in the United States. This isn't something, that's, hearsay. This has come out. It's just not being heavily reported on for whatever reason. According to the report, 7 of 10 DEA agents involved, they admitted to attending the parties at United States leased facilities. They would not specify the country, but law enforcement did reveal that it was Colombia. So, it's just absolute craziness that our own DEA agents are caught up with money from drug cartels hiring hookers. And this is nowhere on mainstream media. Also, a really, 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 really sad, bad story. U.S. troops and contractors, U.S. contractors, military contractors, been sexually abused Colombian girls. They were not tried because they had immunity because they were U.S. forces. This happened between 2003 and 2007, but it's in a new 800-page report. This is completely separate from the DEA report and the Inspector General's report. This is a report that's come out of Colombia that their government has done. And they've seen that 54 let's see, I believe it was 54 children were sexually abused by U.S. soldiers and U.S. military contractors. Girls, there's a story of in 2007, a security contractor was accused of assaulting a 12-year-old girl, but again, he had immunity because he was with the United States military. That's, why are we in these countries again? Not only are we in these countries, but we're assaulting. We are sending soldiers that are assaulting children, and they're not even allowed to be punished. That's just absolutely insane. And why don't we report on these things in this country? Because everything has to seem perfect. Everything has to seem like, we're doing the right thing. We're supposed to be there. I tell you what, before I finish that, we've got our guest on the line tonight. On Tuesday, we had Mr. Michael Lotfi, who writes for BenSwan.com, as does our upcoming guest. So there's a connection there. Mr. Derrick Broze has a new book coming out, The Conscious Resistance, Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, as many other things. Derrick, how you doing tonight?
Hey, brother, I'm doing great.
Fantastic, sir. So you've got a lot of things going on. Why don't you start us off and kind of tell us what you got going on?
Sure. About the book first?
Yeah. Let's talk about the book first. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. Yeah, first of all, thanks for giving me a chance to talk about the book. I'm excited about it. It's as you said, it's called The Conscious Resistance: Reflections on Anarchy and Spirituality, and it's being written by myself and John Vibes, who is a journalist who writes for the Anti-Media and Free Thought Project and True Activist and a whole bunch of other sites. And we've co-written this book together over the past 6 months, and it's basically going to explore the idea of the conscious resistance itself. And that phrase is something I came up with in the summer of 2012. It's also the name of the website and the network that I help run, the Conscious Resistance Network at theconsciousresistance.com. And basically the idea behind that is just that all these issues and problems that we discuss and report about and try to get people to pay attention to, that all these things are really, from our viewpoint, reflections and manifestations of deeper issues that each of us as individuals need to heal from and have like an individual healing, have an individual personal awakening, just in the same way John and I think that any real change isn't going to come from within the government. It's not going to come from top-down situations. It's going to come from individuals deciding to change their own actions, being the change and making, and that will ripple through and create larger change. In the same way that we think that has to start on a deeper, more personal, philosophical, some would say spiritual level. And so that's the idea behind the conscious resistance, which is basically just that moment you realize that, it's not just the physical manifestations of the government institutions and the police and these ideas that we are going against in the physical world, that there's also, a spiritual, a deeper personal battle going on within each of us to battle our own internal tyrants and to learn to just be better people and to, work together. And that's kind of where we start the book from. From there, we explore a whole range of topics. I mean, really, we discuss everything from, anarchy, spirituality, philosophy. We reference tons of studies, and there's some anthropological information there as well. And we look at conscious healing. One of the chapters, chapter 7, is called Conscious Healing. We explore everything from LSD, MDMA, psilocybin mushrooms, yoga, meditation, flotation, tang, a whole bunch of different ideas, just alternative and different methods of healing that some people may not have considered in the past, especially those who are more, rational, materialist thinkers. We're trying to bridge these two worlds of people who are interested in a spiritual sense of the world, whatever that may mean, whether they're open to meditation or prayer or just having a connection to the universe, to God, whatever you want to phrase it as, and not just strictly a mechanical way of viewing the world. Trying to bring those people who are already open to those ideas but may not really have a strong philosophical understanding of the ideas of freedom. We're trying to help them understand that better. And on the other side of the spectrum, we're trying to take those individuals who may already be aware of the philosophy of self-governance and anarchy and true freedom, but not yet been open to looking into these other ideas. So we're bringing these two worlds together. Mine and John's position is something we call explorative agnosticism, which is basically an agnostic as far as religion and God is concerned. It says that either humans don't possess the knowledge to know what a God is real or could be real, or that we'll never know, or just basically taking a sort of a moderate middle position, saying not an atheist position denying God, but just saying it's maybe beyond our understanding. And we take that position not only in regards to belief in that sense, but really just looking at reality as a whole. And I think maybe a lot of the listeners, and for example, those who caught the anti-media article post, there was one poster today about psychedelics, and when you go into that world and you really start to test the limits of what you would consider to be reality, and if you look at some of the things we've learned through quantum mechanics and other things, you start to understand that there's so much that is, quote unquote reality that our brain filters out that really kind of difficult, and science can't currently measure what is in front of us and what exactly we might be experiencing. So we remain open and agnostic in that position where we say, there is this five senses world that we can touch and quantify and measure, but there's also a lot of things going on beyond that world that science maybe can't quite measure yet or isn't ready to accept. Science is a business just like anything else, and it can be very dogmatic and very politicized as far as what type of research gets promoted, accepted by the scientific establishment. So we really try to just open those ideas and bring those worlds together. And we look at the importance of staying connected to your inner child, the way the government and the state and this mainstream culture tries to suppress that and beat this out of us and tell us there's just this one way of living and one way of succeeding. And at some point, despite being told to reach for the stars when you're a young kid, at some point they hope to beat that out of you and get you to accept that you've got to stop being a dreamer. You just got to accept
absolutely
some sub level of life. But I can go on and on. But any questions, man? I mean, I can share some of the chapters with you.
Well, I tell you this. I mean, me and John, sitting in your house in Houston, me and John, it's no secret. I make it no secret that I'm a Christian, and the topics y'all were hitting on, you say it's more of an agnostic point of view. But me and him sat up in your living room till 3 or 4 in the morning talking about this stuff, and it's it hits the nail on the head even with me. I think y'all are exploring topics that are very universal, no matter where you're coming from. So,
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I mean, we've been getting some great positive reviews. We got a really awesome review from economist and libertarian thinker Jeffrey Tucker.
I've got it right here. I don't want to put you on the spot. Let me read it for everybody because it's this.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. This is the economist Jeffrey Tucker. If nobody knows who he is, look him up. But this was his review of the book, which is, and tell everybody what day it's exactly coming out on real quick.
It'll be out on April 12th.
April the 12th. Okay, this is what Jeffrey Tucker had to say. This is an extremely interesting and provocative book, a fresh take on anarchist theory and how it fits with real human life in all its diversity. I've learned things I did not know. It is especially revealing on areas of spirituality and faith and their intersection with anarchism, including material I've not seen elsewhere. The book is living proof that an anarchist perspective is the beginning of the intellectual and spiritual process of seeing the world clearly. That's a pretty great review.
Yeah, we were very pleased to hear that. That was, pretty exciting to get that review from somebody that John and I both respect. And definitely, if you don't know who Jeffrey Tucker is, look into his work. He's got a lot of not only as far as economics is concerned, but just his understanding of freedom itself is definitely worth looking into. So to get a review from somebody like that, who we consider to be educated and well-read, and especially when it comes to anarchist literature, was really pleasing for us. And you mentioned that we discussed the intersection of spirituality and faith and anarchism. So the book is divided into two parts. The first part is sort of what I was just going over, first 10 chapters that are under the title Naming the Past, and that explores all the stuff we were just going over, and also there's some chapters on looking at consciousness and rights applied to animals, plants, and earth. We have an essay called Are We All One? Collectivism versus Individuality. We have a chapter called Balancing the Feminine and the Masculine that looks at feminism and gender roles and just, society, like the history of that and indigenous cultures, different ways that cultures have looked at those ideas. The second part of the book is called Anti-Authoritarianism in World Traditions. And what John and I have found in a lot of our research is that many of these belief systems, and I think that this is something that you definitely understand as a Christian, as you said, but many of these belief systems have been corrupted and changed over a period of time and do not really reflect what the original teachers were calling for.
Absolutely, yeah.
In some cases, they're completely backwards and opposite. So what we found is in a number of these beliefs here, and I'll go over the ones that we explore, their roots are really not necessarily anti-government, or they're not necessarily where you could call them anarchist, even though we see some shades of there. But they were definitely, preaching, like some of the original teachings of Christ, that God was within you, and it wasn't saying go form a church, go form a government, and enshrine my belief. I mean, it was a very personal thing, and we explore, for example, the Christianity chapter, how Christ opposed the bankers, and a lot. We have some good insight on that one. Chapter 11 is intersections of shamanism and anarchy, and we really explore what that word shamanism itself means, and how indigenous peoples around the world have had certain beliefs that go along with anarchist lines of thinking. Chapter 12 is intersections of Christianity and anarchy, and that, again, I think that's going to be really interesting for a lot of people. Chapter 13, we feature two guest essays from another book that somebody else, J.D. Barker, has already written, which is a really great book called Voluntary Islam. But we took he let us use two of his essays from there, and it's for the intersection of Islam and anarchy. One of the essays is called Islam and Freedom, and the second one is about 9th century Islam anarchists, which is really, to me, a lot of that was, we learned so much through researching and putting all this together. We both were really just amazed at that. Then chapter 14 is the intersections of Buddhism and anarchy, and there's two essays that I put together that explore Zen meditation and anarchy and the ideas and how they kind of go together. And then chapter 15, we look at the Taoism or the Tao and anarchy, which is, if you've ever read the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu, if you've ever looked into that, if you haven't, I feel like, when I was reading into this, I'm like, wow, this is just really beautiful stuff. It's not like a religious thing at all. It's really just like a philosophy, but definitely something that's really personal when we read these words. The Tao Te Ching is just, I think it's 81 chapters, and they're really short, just basically poems and verses. And it makes so much sense, but you see these themes repeated throughout there when he's talking about, basically saying that governments shouldn't try to control other people, should let people make their own decisions, and that leads to more happiness and to more freedom. And he's also, talking about the Tao, which was seen as the way, this like life force that flows through everything, and just really about establishing a natural state of being. And there's some really, really good information there on how that relates to anarchy. And then the last chapter is called Zomia and the Art of Not Being Governed, chapter 16. And we discuss a couple of books that have covered the region in Southeast Upland Asia that has kind of become known as Zomia. It never actually existed as an established place. It's more of several different regions that all connect, that are bigger than the size of Europe itself. But they cover, they're like in Laos and Vietnam and India and all these different parts, but they were mountainous regions and regions outside of the state's control that existed for generations until modern times, when the state finally encroached in basically force these people into their system. But these people, it's really interesting that several books and several anthropologists have studied the cultures and have seen that their political systems, their agricultural systems, and in some cases their spiritual beliefs even were designed to be specifically anti-state. Like the way that they lived, they were, they're instead of having to go down into the valleys, which is where most of the cities were, which is where the state was, and they would tax people, keep people within their system, they would stay up in the mountains and the hills, and they developed ways of life that allowed for them to do that and to continue to stay outside of that. And it really, what that illustrates is this idea that, the state that we know now, the state of government that we have now, is the most current evolution, and the reason that we decided to go this way is because it was all horrible, dangerous, and people, basically begged for government to come along to make life safe and secure. And I'm sure that's true in some cases in different parts of the world, and maybe some people would still want that. But Zomia really shows that wasn't always the case. In fact, there was plenty of cultures where they preferred to remain stateless.
Yeah, and I think it's a balancing act. I think that there is a part of human nature that wants the government or Big Brother to be on top of them, because it's a security for them, because it makes them feel like they don't really have to be responsible for themselves or make their own decisions or whatever it may be, and they feel like there's a safety net over top of them. Like they allow government to become their god in a sort of way, if that makes sense. And they let that take the place of their beliefs, and that's what's over them and ruling them.
Oh, absolutely. There's I think it was Larkin Rose that said, statism, the worship and love of government is the most dangerous, superstition, the most dangerous religion of all.
Right, and even in the Bible, it talks about when the Israelites were going to get the king. God was instructing them, y'all don't want this. This isn't really what you want. And they were like, no, we do. And so finally he's like, all right, this is what you want. Good luck, have fun. And so it's people battling, and they don't want to connect to anything, whatever that is that they believe in. They feel like that human element is going to protect them somehow. But really, it's what you've already hit on. It goes back to the individual.
Absolutely. And that's really, I'd say if there's a couple of themes stressed throughout the book, one would be that this change. For one, we make the point that, hey, these ideas we're promoting and these radical ideas of anarchy in smaller communities and, interconnected communities, that we really break down how this is possible, first of all. But before it would be possible, this conscious resistance, this individual change we're talking about has to happen. So we understand now, thinking about these ideas from our current position, it seems like, wow, like you guys are crazy. You're living in some fantasy world. But we're not talking about something that's going to happen tomorrow. But we're talking about us as individuals deciding that the future generations of this world and of humanity itself is worth each of us on a personal, individual level, deciding today in this moment that we want to work towards a better world. And the way to do that is to stay educated about what's going on and to build alternatives towards what we see, and also to work on yourself, on your issues, all your fears, doubts, and insecurities, so that you can provide, the human race with one more healed person or healing person. And as each of us does that, we connect together, and where we all start to, you could say, vibrate at a higher frequency, or however you want to think about it. We start to work together better. People, if we're all imbalanced and we're trying to move to a balanced place, it's just not going to work. But the stronger that we get on an individual level, and the more balanced we are on the individual level, then the more balanced we're going to be when we all come together to create this larger change. Absolutely.
Like just the excerpts I've read from it, I'm just been super, super impressed with. And I can't wait to read the thing in its entirety. So tell everybody where they can pick up a copy of it and where they can go online to get a copy of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, all the information you want about the book, it can be found at theconsciousresistance.com/book, or just go to theconsciousresistance.com and you'll see there's a tab that says book, or the book. Just click there, and it's got all the information, the chapter list. You can see both the the cover art. Scott, you yourself, you made one of the awesome covers. That we picked 2 covers because they just fit so well, and we wanted to have 2 different versions. So you can see the cover art there. You can see the chapter lists and everything. And beginning on April 1st, next Wednesday, you'll be able to go right there, and it'll either be set up directly through the website, or there'll be a link to the website that we're using. And that's whenever we'll start accepting online orders on April 1st. And we'll be officially releasing it, as I said, April 12th at the Free Your Mind Conference in Philadelphia, which is running April 10th through the 12th. And then after that, by then I think we'll have the audiobook versions up. On April 1st as well, on April 12th as well, we're going to release the PDF. So that Sunday morning, we'll put out the PDF online, and it'll be at that same address. You'll be able to order online, and we'll be giving out some physical copies as well. And I think John and I are also going to be speaking at a couple of different events throughout the year and really trying to spend the next few months promoting the ideas in this book and trying to give it away for as cheap as possible. Basically, you'll be able to order it offline for the cost that we get, and you just have to basically pay, I think it's like $5, and then whatever the cost of shipping is to get it to you. So we're really trying to get the ideas out there. We're hoping that people, are excited to read it. But, you mentioned Jeffrey Tucker, or everybody else that we've shared it with seems to be really interested, and it's great to hear people say that they're seeing things that they haven't seen elsewhere, because there's so many different ideas and so many great things going on in the world. It's really hard to find, new exciting ways of putting information together, and that's really what we're trying to aim for here. And I think that we've been successful at it, so I'm excited to see how people respond to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Okay, I want to steer topics here a little bit. As you know, I'm a big fan of politics, but I watch politics more like people watch professional wrestling. I just like the sport of it. I think they're all politicians are pretty much scumbags. But, I like watching it for how fake it is. You released a video today of a guy this week that announced he was going to run for president. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about that video? I got a big kick out of it.
Yeah, did you enjoy that?
I did a lot. For people that haven't seen it yet, you have to go watch this video. Does he really come across like he's a TV evangelist that fake when he's not on camera? Is he that?
Oh man, it was.
Does he switch on and off?
It was a little bit wild. It was a little bit wild watching this video again. So let me just, tell you about the video first of all. This video was shot 3 years ago. This is when Ted Cruz, I'm out here in Houston, Ted Cruz is in Texas. He was doing some promotional events at the time when he was first running for senator. He was only before he was like Texas Agriculture Commissioner or something like that. So he's really got no experience, and now he's already running for president. And at the time, I could already see that they were getting a lot of the Republican, Tea Party, Libertarian crowd to start looking towards Ted Cruz as a young rebel. He's Hispanic, and he can get the Latino vote. Just I could see all these different angles they were playing.
Right.
We were getting lots of interviews, and his was definitely one I wanted to get. And he was honestly, I remember it clearly. He was one of the only people that I interviewed and talked to that day. That when we were talking when the camera was off, it was just like casual conversation, like, "Hey, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do this interview. It sounds good, all right." And then as soon as the camera turned on, he just flipped into his thing, his pitch. He was like,
I'm telling you, he's always reminded me of a TV evangelist. Like he's selling you something, and you don't quite know what it is, but I don't trust it. That's how he's always struck me.
Yeah, I never trusted him either. I didn't trust him then, and watching the video now, the video itself was like 12 minutes long, and I cut it down to just be a couple of minutes there. And I show, and the video can be found at theconsciousresistance.com or our YouTube channel. Go check it out if you guys want to see it. Because I asked him about his wife's connections to Council on Foreign Relations, and I'm sure some of the listeners know about his wife's connections to Goldman Sachs as well. And it's just something that at the time I was like, okay, well, let me see how he responds to this. But it was just funny because as soon as the camera turned on, he goes in his whole spiel, his you could tell he practiced his little elevator speech and starts explaining why Obama was bad and why, how that should be anybody's main goal right now should be taking down Obama. And really, when I listened to it last night and I listened to some of the things he was saying, I felt like he was sort of predicting his own run for president, because he was even, at the time I was asking him, so who do you think we should support, for 2012?
Whoever the candidate is.
Yeah, and that's basically what he was saying. He was just like, well, even if it's not somebody that's a really principled person that supports your beliefs, as long as it's somebody that can defeat Obama. And this is something I really looked at that time. The way they play this game is, all the Republicans are saying is that it's like the Democrats, it's Obama's fault. So we just need to unite behind somebody who can defeat Obama. It's not about like, let's be principled, let's stand for positive things. It's just like, let's beat the other guy, So that allows them to distract people, to get them to support people who are saying the right things. Like, oh, I'm going to stop this person. And they got all the rhetoric down, but they're full of shit. And that's exactly what I felt like with Ted Cruz. I mean, and in the video, you can kind of see me like looking him up and down, like studying him. And I remember at the time just feeling like I could feel the fake oozing off of him.
It does. It seems like he should have a pinky ring and selling used cars, or should be on TV selling Bibles or something. Like, it's just something about him that seems fake. And like, in some parts, there's some things Ted Cruz says I do agree with, like, Obamacare and all that. But you take a step back and you look at what he is. He's exactly the same as every single other politician. This guy is going to drag us into war. He's already talking about, well, you need to go overseas. We need to deal with Yemen, Iraq, Syria. He's already ready to take us. And he doesn't have the power to do it yet, but he wants to. So
yeah, I don't expect anything different from him. And
no,
check out the video yourself. I mean, definitely, like, if I feel like if I was on his side, if I was his team partner, his little crew of people, I would be like, oh, you did great with the perfect political answer. And it's just, for those of us though who don't buy into that stuff, that's what it seems like. You hear it and you're like, wow, that was like a really extremely political answer, and he didn't really say anything. He says so much, but nothing really truly said. It's just one of those situations where you're like, wow, that guy can talk, but I'm not even sure if he answered the question or, what he was trying to say there.
Yeah.
Other than just blow smoke up his own ass.
Okay, so here's a question for you, because a lot of people, he's quote unquote in the libertarian circle, which I don't buy that for a second. I think it's a big act. But he's in that circle, I guess. And you're close to Lake Jackson, I guess, where Ron Paul, where his congressional district was. And Ted Cruz is a senator of Texas. So you've got more, education, I guess, on both of those people than most people. How would you compare the two? Because I know Ted Cruz kind of likes to grab the coattails of Ron Paul, Justin Amash, all those guys.
Yeah, man, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all, and I really don't. I don't trust Rand Paul for that matter. But definitely, as far as like you said, I'm out in the same area, and there's a lot of people who love and support not just the ideas that Ron Paul proposed, but just the ideas of freedom themselves. And no one other than Ron Paul has stood as strongly for freedom within that political realm, probably before or definitely since. And there's a lot of these younger guys who I think have seen this momentum of the liberty movement, the younger college kids that were really getting into Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. And since the second that Ron Paul ended his campaign in 2012, I was at that rally. There was during the RNC in Tampa Bay, and from that moment there, they had Rand Paul out, and it was just really crazy. You could see like already the Republican Party trying to co-opt the message and saying like, well, we may have lost this, but they were already like looking ahead. But we got to start supporting Rand, focus on Rand and all this kind of stuff. Even though Rand had just endorsed Romney against his dad, like we were like, why?
Right.
It was just so obvious. They even had like this.
That was my first. That was the first like chink in the armor for me with him, and there's been a lot since. But yeah,
there's so much that you could say about Rand Paul. And I think that when you take an objective look at him, you can see he's not really what people think he is. And it's the same thing with Ted Cruz. And at that rally itself, at the end of this Ron Paul thing, they had this on the stage. They had this big light up sign, and it said Republican, but it was like the CAN was it up differently. So their whole message was like Republican. It was like, damn, dude, Ron Paul's not like about the party politics, and they were already shifting in that direction, basically trying to take these people who maybe woke up in a lot of ways because of Ron Paul and just really this movement against, the two-party system that's happened over the past 8 years or so, and trying to take those people who felt some momentum from that movement and direct them like back into the party politics. And basically just this idea has gone on since then. People who support Ron Paul are like, okay, well now we need to support Rand Paul. He's actually better than his dad because his dad may have been really principled and stood for ideas that mattered, but Rand Paul knows how to play the game better. So we should support him because he's going to be able to do what his dad couldn't. And it's just, I don't know. I imagine for people who've been awake and aware of these things for a few generations now, it's got to get sickening because I know I'm already pretty sick of every election cycle them selling another person and people just buying and thinking, okay, well maybe it's this one. This one's going to get it done. This one,
absolutely. And I think this is something that's really important for people to remember. Anybody, maybe Ron Paul's an example, but maybe some people, to him it's not. Anybody that's really worthy of being elected, anybody that's really worthy of being a leader, is not going to play they're never going to be allowed to be that level of leadership. They're never going to be elected on that level. It's just not going to happen. There's too much money involved. We're not talking about Illuminati, cabal, any of that junk. We're talking about just money and corporations putting people in power to do their will for them and lobbyists. That's it. And these people are not going to allow somebody that's not going to bend over and do their will for them. So you're never going to get a real leader in power, period, ever, I don't think, at this stage in the game with the way the system currently is set up.
Absolutely. I just don't see I don't see solutions within the political realm. And I think Ted Cruz is just the latest of a long line, and there'll be more to come, And to me, honestly, I think that he's going to be the first sort of sacrificial lamb in this election season because he's the first to announce. I feel like, okay, that means he's going to be the first little distraction sideshow. He'll be gone within a couple of weeks to a couple of months or so.
I think Rubio and Cruz are there really to kind of, like we talked about with Rand, I don't think Rand has the answers. I think he's really disappointed on some levels, but at the same time, he's still stuck more to his dad's guns than anybody. I don't think Rand's ever going to get elected, ever. I think just being Ron Paul's son will make sure he's never elected. But I think they have Cruz and they have Rubio there to kind of grab that vote. But when you look at their voting record, it's not even close to that. They're just going to vote for more of what Romney would have done, Obama, Bush, all that. They're just trying to play that rhetoric to steer that into the White House. So what are your predictions for 2016? Where do you see it going? Nomination, all that stuff.
Man, like I said, I'm going to try to pay attention as little as possible, but I think that I tend to agree with you. I don't think Rand could actually get the nomination.
I don't think it'll ever happen.
Possible, but I don't think he would ever win in any way, and I just think that's just kind of giving people a little hope that they're going to have this underdog possibly who says some of the right things and scares people in some ways, but he's the closest thing to what people see for a lot of people, but then on the other side, it's like there's nobody worth looking at. Hillary Clinton's obviously going to be pushed, but I kind of feel like she's got a lot of baggage too. They might bring somebody out of nowhere that we don't expect yet, or it could just end up being a Clinton versus a Bush thing. I think all of it is terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, all of the options are terrifying.
Now that I completely agree with, because let's just say hypothetically Rand Paul gets the nomination. Just the way he's kind of gone back and forth on issues and been on issues, that makes me really nervous. I don't think, and that's the thing with politics, is they look to this one person to save everything, and it goes back to what you were talking about with your book. You can't vote for somebody to fix everything. For things to be fixed, it has to come within. It's not going to come at a ballot. It's not going to be a little box you check. If you want things to change, you have to do it from within yourself. period. There's not going to be a politician that's going to save you.
Absolutely. I got to get going in just a few minutes, man, but I'd like to talk about this weekend's action. If we
Go ahead. Tell us what's going on Saturday.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, so this Saturday, March 28th, is I've been calling for a second day of action against torture. We did the last one January 31st, which I think was extremely successful with cities around the country, around the United States, and in Canada and Germany and some other places joining in. It was really awesome to see, and several cities actually got some pretty good media coverage, and there was several waterboarding simulations, and overall I think a lot of people were reached, and it was a success. This time we really haven't had as much of a response, but we're still pushing forward with it. I know there's going to be one in Toronto. I've seen a couple other cities. I can't remember them right now. I know Houston, we're going to be doing some action. I think we're going to have, although it seems like it might be a smaller national response, it looks like this time in Houston we're going to have some bigger numbers for us, which is good because we got media coverage in several outlets and some good videos out there, and I myself and a couple others got waterboarded, and I think it really inspired a lot of people who got in touch with me and are like, wow, I'd like to be involved this next time. So I think we'll have a good turnout. And, just once again, we're basically just trying to talk to our brothers and sisters out there and remind them, or just ask them why in 2015 we're having to tell people that it's wrong to torture other human beings, and that there really is no justification no matter what the military or the government tries to say on the use of torture. And this is, of course, looking at the treatment of people at Guantanamo Bay and other black sites across the world, but also we're using this as an opportunity to talk about the recent discoveries in Chicago and Holman Square, where, of course, we know there was basically a domestic black site where people were taken without access to their lawyers and family, beaten and subjected to all kinds of forms of what amounts to torture. And it's definitely, detention, it seems like, possible NBA stuff on there. So this is kind of a standing against all of that mistreatment of people, and also those who suffer in conditions that are equal to torture and massive incarceration, in various facilities around the world. So it's a big topic, but I think they're all interrelated. And of course, I think you could even step back further and say this all goes back to a result of the war on terror, the war on drugs, and basically the war on people and the war on freedom. So we're going to be out there talking to people Saturday, wearing orange jumpsuits, passing out flyers.
It's going to be at 1 p.m., right?
Yeah, 1 p.m. And I definitely encourage people to check out these information. You can find the event on Facebook, of course, and there's an article on the anti-media from yesterday, the day before, you'll find it. But just look up Global Day of Action Against Torture, second Global Day of Action, search those terms, or look on Facebook, I'm sure you'll find it. And if you want to start an event in your city, or even if you don't, I know sometimes people say I don't know anybody, or there's nobody around me, and even if it's just you and a sign, and you go make some handmade flyers, or just go have conversations with people, it does make a difference. The more that we're united together and working on causes like this, it shows unity and allows us to work towards bigger ideas and bigger goals. So if you care about that, and if you want to be a voice for those who really have no voice and who are suppressed and oppressed and ignored in our environment, I mean, it's really disturbing to me, the amount of hatred I see on this cause, and with a really, I'd say, open-minded and progressive audience like the anti-media. Even on the anti-media Facebook page, we see people posting really ignorant things, and I see it on other pages as well, and it's just really blown me away, the amount of people who seem to be awake on some issues, but have really bought into the ISIS propaganda, fear, war on terrorism stuff that I thought most people were awake to, and allow that to say, they'll throw up a picture of 9/11 and be like, this is why I support torture.
Yeah.
Or they'll say, well, as long as they're, it stops them from beheading people, then I don't care what we do to them, and it's just, that's exactly what that propaganda is intended to do.
Exactly.
To dehumanize other and to create that state of mind where we allow these things. So we want to put it in people's face.
I tell you what, before I let you go, we had Justin on right after the event on the 31st. And he got waterboarded in Ohio, and he kind of told his story. You got waterboarded in Houston. More of a personal level, tell people what it was like to get waterboarded and why it is torture, and more the personal aspect of it, instead of just this big
policy thing that they hear about?
Yeah, I got waterboarded twice, and it was a form of waterboarding. We weren't able to do like the angle the way they do it, as far as being whenever you're in their institutions, they have you set at a certain angle. So the idea is, they're pouring water over through the rag, and when you're angled like that, it goes into your sinus cavity. It feels like you're drowning, but you won't actually die. So we had some people just hold me down like on the side of the road, and we actually took over this intersection, and they dragged me out to the middle of the street and held me down there, and all these people were freaking out in the middle of traffic, like, what the heck is going on? And they're pouring, this water just straight over. I had a black shirt wrapped around my head, simulating like a black bag, and it really felt like I was drowning, man, and I could only take it for maybe 5 to 10 seconds or so. It was just, it's pretty. I was really trying to just, in that moment, feel and like connect to the people who are living this as a reality, man, because, we can write about it and think about it, but it really is a disturbing thing to just, there's individuals that have been cleared of any wrongdoing, and they're dealing with these situations, and they're trying to protest their conditions, and then they get forced fed, which is another form of torture. And it's really disturbing. So I was really trying to put myself in their shoes and their position, in their position, and connect with that. And so we had somebody grab me kind of violently and drag me out there and hold me down and pouring water on my face, and I'm sitting there trying to breathe, and it's like, it's just really, it's intense, things are flashing in front of you, and like you trying to breathe, and the water spilling all over. And the way I was when I was laying down, every time I tried to take a breath or, get the water out of my mouth, the shirt would get sucked down into my throat. So it really was, a couple of terrifying seconds of just feeling that, like, damn, like I might just drown right here, and
that's crazy.
It was really, a crazy feeling, but I feel like if that's the least I can do to try to end solidarity with these people who are dealing with this crazy stuff, then I'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, man, you're just an inspiration, Derrick. I thank you so much for everything that you do. Okay, tell people one more time. We got the book coming out, The Conscious Resistance, Reflection on Anarchy and Spirituality. That's going to be out on April the 12th, correct?
Yep, April the 12th.
And give them the website one more time they can get that from.
Yeah, that's at consciousresistance.com/book. Or, just go to consciousresistance.com. You're going to find lots of content, articles, videos from myself and the rest of the people on the team, and you'll see the book tab. You can find all the information about that.
And then on Saturday...
and then Saturday is the Global Action Against Torture, and that can be found on Facebook. And really, I would say Facebook or not, just Saturday afternoon, Saturday at 1 p.m. If you've got some friends, if you got a cause that you care about, go talk to people, get out there. If you can find some more jumpsuits, some more shirts, whatever it is, just making the effort really matters. And if you've got time to organize it, throw it on Facebook. We'll go ahead and put it in the main event to share it with other people so they can find it. But if not, just go out there and do something. That's what really matters. Absolutely, man. Derrick, thank you so much for calling in tonight, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. I'll catch up with you later. All right. Be talking to you soon. All right. The wonderful Derrick Broze, who writes with BenSwan.com, The Conscious Resistance, The Liberty Beat, Anti-Media. He's always doing something, always somewhere speaking. Luckily, I've got people around like that are, way more in tune and intelligent than me to keep around to make myself not sound so stupid half the time. Thank you again, Derrick, for coming on. So, I tell you what, right before we wrap up, I'll tell everybody where I was at and what I was doing today. Barack Obama visited my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama. I was unfortunately, or I guess fortunately maybe, not able to see the speech in person. I did watch it online. I watched the stream. I went down there, though, to the event, and there was just people everywhere. And it's a side of town. Birmingham is not the most to-do city inside the city limits. And it was, in kind of a rougher part of town, but it was, where the community college is and where the high school is. And they had it very, very secure. But the thing that amazed me is they had, all the news channels on the corner,
which, you expect, but it was the people that were just sitting there in their lawn chairs like they were about to witness some sort of deity show up. And I get people being excited, it's the President of the United States, but they were treating this man like he was really a deity, like he was not even a prophet, like he was something greater. And I don't care if it's George Bush, I don't care if it's Bill Clinton, I don't care if it's Ronald Reagan. Yeah. It's just a person. And more for me is I went down there to kind of people watch. I didn't even stick around until when he showed up. I left about an hour before he got there. It was funny, some of the stuff. There were people protesting about free Larry Langford. If you don't know who Larry Langford is, it's more of a Birmingham thing, but it's a guy that was charged with over 100 charges of political corruption and went to prison because he bankrupted the county we live in, Jefferson County. At the time, it was the largest bankruptcy municipality in the history of the country, so he's deservedly in prison. I wish more politicians that did stuff like that would go to jail. But you got people out there wanting him to be free, which just was insane to me. I actually thought it was very amusing that they spent money on these signs. But to me, it was just more of a person, like a person worship. And I get the news aspect of it. I'm fine with that and going out there and observing. I get that, but it was just the way this anxiety people had, like, he's coming. And so I came home and I did some work for a little bit. And then you turn on the TV, and the TV here, it was just all about him. And they had his motorcade driving down the road. Like, it was just this angelic figure. What really disturbed me was, they're showing his plane. He gets in the plane that shows it just kind of ascend into the heavens, which, was similar to a biblical story of Jesus ascending into the heavens. And again, it's not against Obama personally. It's not his fault. That's not, he can't help how people react to him. I do think that it's people's fault for getting so involved in a person. Whether it's Bush or whoever, I don't care who the person is. I think it's kind of sick that people really, really get that involved with someone. But I guess that's the world we're living in. And I think it's that culture that kind of blinds us from what these people are really doing. Like we were talking about Ted Cruz earlier. They see that he, gave his 24-hour spiel or whatever did about Obamacare, and people don't want the government in their lives, and that's great. We shouldn't have the government in our lives. But you get that, and they transpose some other belief system, I believe, on a person, and he becomes all of a sudden everything you believe in. And once you focus in on that one thing that you really, really identify with this person, you kind of shut everything else out about that person around them. So with Ted Cruz, he can be talking about how he thinks we need to increase our military in Iraq and Syria, all over the Middle East, which is, basically similar to what Bush did. He's ready to put all those troops on the ground in countries that we have no business being in. But I tell you what, we'll finish this conversation next week. Make sure to tune into Anti-Media Radio tomorrow night with Levon. Anti-Media out.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.